Good morning. Today I'll be presenting a critical analysis of one of the most dramatic corporate falls in technology history, the rise and fall of BlackBerry. This case perfectly illustrates the innovation dilemmas that Clayton Christensen warned us about and provides crucial insights into balancing innovation and risk management. Moving on, we'll examine three key areas. First is what made BlackBerry initially successful. Second, how they responded to competitive threats. And finally, why they couldn't sustain their market position despite being industry pioneers. This analysis draws on Christensen's disruptive innovation framework, value network theory, and also contemporary risk management principles. Let's begin with BlackBerry's spectacular rise. When Research in Motion launched the BlackBerry in 1999, they created what Christensen calls a perfect value network alignment. Unlike Palm, which targeted consumers, BlackBerry laser focused on enterprise customers who desperately needed mobile email solutions. This wasn't just a product, it was a complete ecosystem. As the 1999 annual report stated, BlackBerry was the first complete solution for accessing corporate email from a single handheld. The always-on connectivity was revolutionary. No more dialing into servers or visiting websites. BlackBerry's innovation architecture was brilliant in its simplicity. This solved four critical enterprise pain points. First, push email technology that automatically delivered messages. Second, a physical keyboard that professionals could actually type on. Remember, this was before touchscreens were viable. Third, military-grade security that satisfied government and Fortune 500 requirements. And fourth, but not the least, a business model that aligned career incentives through revenue sharing. What's crucial here is that they avoided what Anderson and Semester call market risk by staying focused. As one executive noted, they didn't see a huge opportunity in the consumer segment. And initially, the focus was their strength. Moving on. The numbers speak for themselves. From a $10 share price in March 1999 to $260 in March 2000. That's 2,500% growth. What a staggering growth. By 2007, BlackBerry had achieved a market capitalization exceeding $60 billion. They had 800,000 customers by 2001, growing to millions by 2007, with presence across 270 networks in 110 countries. This success wasn't accidental. It exemplifies what Christensen describes as sustaining innovation within an established value network. They kept improving email functionality, security, and keyboard design for their core customer base. Then came January 2007. Steve Jobs unveiled the iPhone. This was classic disruptive innovation in action. The iPhone initially performed worse than BlackBerry at core email functions, but it opened entirely new performance dimensions like multimedia, internet browsing, and applications. BlackBerry's initial reaction reveals what Christensen calls the innovator's dilemma. Co-CEO Lazardes dismissed Apple, saying, "How much presence does Apple have in business? It's vanishingly small." He focused on the iPhone's weaknesses like battery life and typing difficulty while missing its transformative potential. BlackBerry's competitor response followed a predictable pattern of failure. First comes denial. They couldn't believe enterprise customers would want cameras or music players. Then came reactive panic. Under pressure, they rushed the BlackBerry Storm to market in 2008. The Storm exemplifies what happens when risk management fails. As Balsillie later admitted, "We tried to do too much, and it was all done in an incredibly short period of time, and it blew up on us." One reviewer called it the Edsel of smartphones. Verizon had to replace 1 million units at $500 million cost. The Android threat. Google's open innovation model. Simultaneously, while Apple was coming out, Google launched Android with a radically different approach: open innovation. While BlackBerry maintained a closed proprietary system, Android embraced what Dallender and Gann call collaborative innovation. Samsung and Motorola could customize Android devices, creating rapid market penetration. By 2011, Android had surpassed BlackBerry's market share. BlackBerry's App World launched with 2,000 applications, while Apple had 65,000. This wasn't just a numbers game. It reflected fundamentally different innovation philosophies. Now, let's critically analyze why BlackBerry couldn't sustain its position. The first issue was strategic misalignment. Christensen's value network theory explains this perfectly. BlackBerry remained trapped in the enterprise value network while the market shifted toward consumers. Their resource allocation reflected this misalignment. Between 2005 and 2016, they made 29 acquisitions totaling hundreds of millions of dollars. But as the anonymous BGR letter revealed, no one is making critical decisions. And there was a serious need to consolidate the focus of the firm. Disruptive innovation analysis. This brings us to the core of Christensen's disruptive innovation framework. BlackBerry excelled at sustaining innovation, continuously improving email, security, and keyboards for existing customers. But they missed the disruptive shift. The market's performance demands had evolved. Customers no longer just wanted better email. They wanted multimedia experiences, applications, and intuitive interfaces. BlackBerry's performance trajectory, shown here, diverged from market demand. This is textbook disruption. Organizational governance compounded these strategic failures. The dual CEO structure, with two CEOs, had created what one executive called a goat rodeo. Lazaridis focused on engineering excellence, while Balsillie pursued business development, but they lacked integrated strategic planning. The 2011 BGR letter from an anonymous senior executive is particularly revealing. It stated teams still aren't talking together properly. No one is making critical decisions. This reflects what Kaplan and Mikes identify as governance risk. When organizational structure prevents effective decision making. Moving on, we look into the innovation dilemma and why great firms fail like BlackBerry. The innovation dilemma was fundamental in BlackBerry's case. Christensen argues that great firms fail because they do everything right for their existing customers. BlackBerry's enterprise client explicitly didn't want cameras, music players, or consumer apps for security reasons. As one former executive noted, Lazaridis didn't want to compete in the cutthroat consumer phone market. This customer dependency blinded them to the emerging mass market that would eventually subsume their enterprise niche. Moving on, from a risk management perspective, BlackBerry failed across multiple dimensions. They underestimated technology risk, dismissing touchscreen viability. They misread market risk, consumer adoption patterns, and much more. They ignored organizational risk, their siloed structure, and crucially, they had no scenario planning for disruption. Erdman, Sichel, and Young emphasized that effective scenario planning requires considering low probability and high impact events. The consumer smartphone revolution was exactly such an event. The quantitative decline tells the story starkly. Revenue collapsed from $19.9 billion in 2011 to $2.2 billion in 2016, an 89% decline. US market share fell from 44% to 0.2%. Market capitalization dropped from $60 billion to $4 billion. This wasn't a gradual decline, it was disruption. By 2013, they were forced to pivot from hardware to software and security services under the new CEO, John Chen, essentially admitting that the core business model was now obsolete. BlackBerry's story offers 5 critical lessons for innovation management. First, value network flexibility. Organizations must anticipate and prepare for market shifts. Second, distinguishing between sustaining and disruptive innovation. Performance improvements don't always match market evolution. Third, organizational agility matters. Governance structures must enable, not hinder, strategic decision making. Fourth, risk management must be integrated into innovation processes, including scenario planning for disruptive threats. And finally, customer evolution. Existing customers can blind organizations to emerging markets. BlackBerry mastered sustaining innovation but failed at disruptive innovation. They excelled at risk management within their existing paradigm but missed the paradigm shift itself. As Christensen teaches us, this isn't a failure of competence, it's the innovator's dilemma. The very capabilities that made BlackBerry successful ultimately caused their downfall. Thank you for your attention and have a lovely day.